The greatest thing we have to fear is fear itself. Those words by U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt are usually associated with the Second World War. But in fact, they were words that Roosevelt uttered during his first inaugural address at a time of severe economic challenge. What Roosevelt articulated in that statement was exactly the right sentiment for his historical time. The need for a sense of the possibilities of the future, and the need for an understanding of the way in which current fear can be an obstacle to creating a space for the future. The same is true for countries around the world that have similarly experienced times of challenge, whether it be due to economic hardship, conflict, or disaster. Sri Lanka experienced a decades-long civil war that's just recently concluded. Turkey has had to contend with an insurgency that continues to this day. And South Korea looks to the north to an intransigent and belligerent neighbor in a peninsula that's locked in conflict. Yet all three of these countries that were economic peers of Pakistan in the 1970s have grown and developed dramatically over that time period, despite conflict. What those examples illustrate is that conflict undermines development directly, just as disasters do. But its greatest impact is in the manner in which it distorts incentives and undermines a confidence and faith in the possibilities of the future. The same is true in Pakistan today. I'm Phil Auerswald. I'm an associate professor at George Mason University, and I'm pleased to have an opportunity to present to you today some thoughts on a growth agenda that's part of a new development approach in Pakistan that's being envisioned and conceived by the Planning Commission. Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the New Deal also provides a context for international development in another way. The programs that were the hallmark of the New Deal, the Tennessee Valley Authority, the Works Project Administration, and other large-scale development projects created the model that was employed after World War II by the Bretton Woods institutions, such as the World Bank behind me, in finding strategies to bring poor countries out of poverty. For its time, that model was a visionary one. Yet events in the last 50 years have overtaken the models of the past. Furthermore, the scale of financial transfers globally has overwhelmed the scale of official development assistance. $100 billion a year goes from rich countries to poor countries in aid. Yet $250 billion is transferred in remittances from families and people in rich countries to their family members and friends in poor countries. And in contrast to that, $500 billion, fully 5 times the amount of official development assistance, leaves poor countries every year and goes to rich countries in illicit transfers of various types. A vigorous conversation has been taking place now for over a decade on the topic of aid effectiveness. However, the real discussion, in light of the numbers that I just shared with you, is the relevance of aid. What really matters today for growth and development are the sets of strategies and policies that countries have in place to govern the organization of their markets and to incent entrepreneurship, which globally and throughout history has been the driver of the dispersion of economic power and the growth of political autonomy. Growth diagnostics exercised in Pakistan have established that Pakistan is in fact not a poor country from the standpoint of its capital resources, its savings, its assets, and also evidently it is not a poor country from the standpoint of human capabilities. It is clearly the case that Pakistan is rich with entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial talent. What's required and what is missing today is a set of incentives and institutional structures that will guide those entrepreneurs and direct that talent towards the activities that will grow and develop the country into the future. That is the core of a growth agenda that's part of a new development approach for Pakistan. The question for an entrepreneurship-led development policy, then, is how precisely to create the incentives and motivations for entrepreneurs to seek productive entrepreneurship rather than destructive entrepreneurship or rent-seeking activities. There are a number of default ways to think about policies for growth and development based on entrepreneurship. One default assumption is that the way to do it is to create something like the U.S. Small Business Administration, founded in 1953 in an economic environment that hugely favored large incumbent firms. That strategy of focusing on support for small business was good for the 1950s, but it's not a strategy that makes sense in the 21st century. For one thing, small business, as it's referred to here, or small and medium enterprises, SMEs, as the term is used elsewhere in the world, is not the same as entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a phenomenon that involves the creation of new business entities and their growth, and the manner in which that growth has impacts throughout the economy. The sort of entrepreneurship policy that will make a difference in Pakistan is one that certainly will support small ventures, but it's also one that will support new, disruptive, and innovative ventures that can challenge powerful incumbents and create a vibrant economic environment. How can this happen? For one thing, the macro environment is absolutely essential. I don't touch on that in the report that I co-authored for the Planning Commission, and it's not something on which I will offer any comments today. However, it's clear that macroeconomic stability is a necessary condition. It's not, however, sufficient. The action items and the agenda items on which we focus in the brief study that we prepared for the competition for the Planning Commission that you have with you are ones that focus on three areas. One, competition. Two, entrepreneurship. And three, lowering transactions costs. I won't attempt to summarize those for you today, but the main thing that I want to say is that we, the authors of that study, and certainly the Planning Commission that requested the study, understands that there is very little that's new in what we put together. The purpose of compiling the various initiatives that would constitute an entrepreneurship-led development strategy was quite simply to describe the possibilities of the future and to summarize in one document a set of initiatives whose time has come, not just in Pakistan, but in the United States, in Turkey, in South Korea, in Sri Lanka, and elsewhere in the world, in places everywhere where an increasing understanding is being reached that sustainable growth and development requires vibrant markets and effective, passionate, and positively contributing entrepreneurs. I just suggested that the ideas I've been discussing today aren't new ones. So the question naturally arises, if they haven't worked in the past, why would they work now? I'd suggest there are three reasons. One is that policies to support entrepreneurship that have been advanced in Pakistan in the past have been sporadic. They've been contradicted by other aspects of government policy, and they've also focused excessively on small and medium enterprises as opposed to new firms and high growth firms, which is the foundation of a true entrepreneurship-led development policy. Second of all, the competitive environment has changed. The neighboring countries that surround Pakistan are succeeding and growing and driving their future through strategies that can easily be adopted in Pakistan at this time. The pathways for entrepreneurship-led growth have been clearly established in places like Turkey, South Korea, Sri Lanka, and elsewhere in the world, where rapid growth has become the norm in developing countries rather than the exception. And finally, new technologies, particularly mobile phones, but other distributed technologies and energy as well, can create an entirely new range of possibilities for entrepreneurs and consumer service delivery that simply did not exist even 10 years ago. How will that happen? Well, to close this presentation, I've come to a place where I work, a coffee shop in Northwest Washington, D.C. Is this the center of power? Is this the center of policy for Washington, D.C.? No. It's a place where people gather and meet, share ideas, write books, craft business plans, and otherwise find their way forward in their own personal trajectories. Entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship policy is not about big plans. It's not about big projects. It's about creating a space for the future. A simple space like this, but also a space in one's cognitive framework about the process of growth and development. Entrepreneurial ventures are small, but entrepreneurial vision is not. And the role that entrepreneurship plays in growth and development and the way that it interacts with competition in markets is the absolute cornerstone of the development of nations and the evolution of the global economy. I'm deeply grateful to the Planning Commission for having invited me to offer some perspectives on the important process and the very significant discussions that you're having today. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to future involvement in this very significant set of decisions that the Planning Commission is initiating today. Thank you.